On December 11th, 2010, at approximately 7 a.m., Mr. Zhang Yuqin, a 65-year-old man living in apartment complex 14A, Chengquan District, Lanzhou, Gansu Province, woke up early to sweep the alleyway in front of his house, a daily task he performed regularly. This area was a dilapidated urban neighborhood with narrow and uneven alleys, barely wide enough for a bicycle or a small motorbike to pass through. Families living nearby often disposed of their trash carelessly, particularly at the end of the alley, which had become a dumping ground for waste and old debris. In November, temperatures dropped below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, leaving the alley deserted. As Mr. Zhang swept toward the end of the alley to gather the trash, he noticed something unusual. Beneath the pile of debris, he spotted a piece of fabric protruding oddly. Upon closer inspection, he saw pale skin peeking out from beneath the trash. Next to a human arm sticking out of the debris, he froze in shock and fear. He quickly ran back into his house to inform others and contact the police. After receiving the call, officers from the Chengquan District Police arrived at the scene. The crime scene was immediately cordoned off. The location was a narrow alley approximately 164 feet long, with little foot traffic in the early morning. The trash pile consisted of old construction materials, plastic containers, and household waste. Upon removing the debris, they discovered the body of a woman underneath. The arm protruding from the pile had stiffened due to the cold temperature, and the body had not yet decomposed significantly. Forensic experts conducted a preliminary examination and determined that the victim was a young woman wearing a jacket, jeans, and shoes. At the time of discovery, her face was obscured by the debris, leaving only her legs and one arm clearly visible. The wooden planks and materials covering her indicated that the perpetrator had made a hasty attempt to conceal the body, with no effort to thoroughly hide it. Upon inspecting the surroundings, investigators noted a few small but significant details. Traces of blood were found on a nearby piece of wood, along with faint footprints on the damp ground. However, there were no signs of a struggle or altercation at the scene, leading authorities to conclude that this was not the location of the murder, but rather a disposal site. Police theorized that the body was moved to this location during the night when fewer people were around. The area was secluded, lacked streetlights, and saw little traffic in the evening, making it an ideal spot to hide a body without immediate detection. Although this community still had residents, it was sparsely populated and lacked modern surveillance systems like CCTV cameras, complicating the search for leads. With no camera footage to analyze, investigators had to rely on traditional methods, such as interviewing witnesses and examining physical evidence at the scene. However, collecting testimonies from local residents proved challenging. The area was home to migrant workers, elderly individuals, and reclusive families with limited social connections. Most residents either noticed nothing unusual or were unable to provide valuable information. No one recognized the victim or observed any suspicious activity in recent days. Faced with these challenges, the police decided to conduct an autopsy to determine the cause of death while launching a more in-depth investigation into the victim's identity. The victim was identified as a young woman, approximately 25 to 30 years old, with a height of about 5 feet 3 inches and an estimated body weight of 110 to 121 pounds. When discovered, the body was lying on its right side. The victim's skin appeared pale, particularly in the exposed areas. Underneath her black jacket, forensic examiners observed that her skin had begun to show bluish discoloration, a typical sign of death in cold environments. Although the victim had been deceased for some time, the low temperatures in the area had slowed the decomposition process. This allowed the police to analyze further physical evidence on the body before it fully deteriorated. Upon turning the body over, the forensic team noted that the victim was lying in a relatively natural position, with no signs of intense resistance or struggle prior to death. This raised suspicions that the victim might have died before being transported to the scene or was unconscious at the time of death. Examination of the victim's clothing, a thick black jacket, a sweater underneath, and dark jeans, suggested she was dressed appropriately for the cold November weather in Lanzhou. Forensic experts quickly focused on the victim's neck. Faint red marks horizontally crossed the neck, indicating a possible strangulation. While these marks were not prominent, They were sufficient to suggest strangulation as a preliminary cause of death. They also found minor scratches below the jaw, potentially caused by weak resistance or attempts to struggle during the strangulation. However, due to the absence of severe injuries or significant signs of a physical altercation, it was highly likely that the victim was attacked unexpectedly or incapacitated. Next, forensic specialists closely examined the victim's face. Although her face was not heavily obscured by trash, it exhibited slight swelling, suggesting that the body had been in the pile of debris for roughly 2 days, likely since November 10th. The victim's lips were bluish-purple, a typical sign of asphyxiation. There were no signs of sexual assault or external bleeding from injuries on the victim, but investigators discovered a small blood stain on a nearby piece of wood. This raised the possibility that the blood did not belong to the victim, but potentially to another individual, likely the perpetrator. Another notable detail was the victim's white sneakers, which were covered in soil and dried mud, inconsistent with the type of soil found in the alley where the body was discovered. The investigative team conducted a thorough examination of the victim's clothing and the area surrounding the body. Unfortunately, no objects or documents were found that could help identify the victim. Residents in the area did not recognize her or provide any useful information. At this stage, details such as gender, age, and estimated time of death became crucial data for the police to narrow down and cross-check missing person reports from the Lanzhou area. However, after extensive review, no missing person reports matched the victim's description in the city or surrounding areas. The lack of a matching report suggested that the victim might not have been a local resident or could have lived an isolated life with no relatives or friends concerned enough to file a report. Another theory considered by investigators was that the victim might have been a transient or someone passing through the area before being murdered. After conducting a preliminary examination of the body, the police and forensic experts quickly identified several distinctive features of the victim. The first noticeable detail was her dyed hair, suggesting that she had a stylish and bold personality. The victim had long, neatly trimmed nails with intricate nail art. During the examination, the police also discovered a rose tattoo on her right hip. Further in-depth analysis revealed additional significant details, including the presence of an intrauterine device. Additionally, the forensic team noticed evidence of a surgical procedure in her genital area. Although the stitches had been removed, the surrounding tissue had not fully healed, with signs of ongoing recovery. This indicated that the cosmetic genital surgery had likely been performed shortly before her death. To expedite the identification process, the police collaborated with media outlets. Key physical details, such as her short, vibrantly dyed hair and the rose tattoo on her right hip, were shared with newspapers and television stations. Forensic sketches of the victim were also used to aid in recognition. Meanwhile, the investigative team continued to analyze the case. The victim's physical attributes, including her fashion style, striking hair color, cosmetic surgery, and IUD, helped investigators form a general profile of her lifestyle and personal circumstances. The police hypothesized that the victim likely belonged to a younger demographic, possibly someone who valued appearance and personal style. She might have led a lively and carefree life, working in an industry that emphasized physical attractiveness or entertainment. The possibility that the victim was involved in sex work was also considered. Based on this reasoning, the police expanded their investigation to entertainment venues across the city. On the second day of the operation, a critical lead emerged at a karaoke bar named Xiangku, located about 9 miles from the location where the body was discovered. When investigators presented a photo of the victim to the bar's staff, many immediately recognized her. They confirmed that the victim's name was Wang Xiaohong, a 23-year-old former employee. Xiaohong had started working at the bar in early January, but had quit at the end of July. Since then, she had not kept in touch with her colleagues. Xiaohong was described as an average-looking girl with a charming and attractive face, which made her stand out. Her natural charm earned her favoritism from the male manager and drew the attention of many customers. Xiaohong had a feisty and somewhat arrogant personality, which caused her female co-workers to dislike her. Due to this, her colleagues were largely unaware of her personal life and relationships. From information provided by a female colleague close to Xiaohong, the police learned that the house Xiaohong previously rented was less than half a mile from the Xiangku karaoke bar. Hoping to gather important leads, the police immediately went to this address. Upon arrival, they spoke with the landlord, who revealed that Xiaohong had moved out at the end of July. The landlord did not know where Xiaohong went after leaving. Neighbors shared that Xiaohong lived a very private life and rarely interacted with others. Based on her clothing and her schedule, they assumed she worked in a certain type of profession, which made them reluctant to engage with her. The neighbors also disclosed that during her time at the rental property, a middle-aged man appearing to be between 40 and 50 years old frequently visited Xiaohong. Although they didn't know his full name, they occasionally heard Xiaohong call him Ajian. From their interactions, the neighbors speculated that the two were romantically involved. Judging by the man's clothing and demeanor, he appeared to be wealthy. Using the rental records the landlord had kept, the police quickly identified Xiaohong's hometown as being in Shanxi province. The police decided to investigate further in her hometown, hoping to find leads related to her family or friends. There, they learned that Xiaohong had dropped out of school in her second year of high school due to her family's financial struggles. Her parents had divorced when she was young, and she did not live with them, instead staying with her paternal grandparents. After leaving school, Xiaohong worked in agriculture in her rural hometown for a while. However, she soon decided to leave the simple life behind and moved to Lanzhou at the age of 21 to seek better opportunities. Xiaohong had a strong and confident personality from a young age. She was self-assured and enjoyed expressing herself, but this often caused friction with those around her, leading to frequent social isolation. Her grandparents, now elderly and unfamiliar with modern technology, relied on neighbors to help them contact Xiaohong. However, Xiaohong rarely answered these calls, avoiding conversations and preferring that her grandparents not interfere in her life. Xiaohong had explicitly asked them to limit their calls to only emergencies. This distance strained her relationship with her family. Her grandparents, uncles, and former classmates rarely kept in touch with her. They were unaware of her current address in Lanzhou or her circumstances leading up to the tragedy. The police determined that their top priority was to identify Xiaohong's residence before her disappearance. This would help them reconstruct her relationships and activities in the period leading up to the murder. The police also focused on the man named Ajian, who was frequently mentioned by neighbors as a regular visitor to Xiaohong's previous rental. At this stage, the police decided to expand their investigation into Xiaohong's phone records. The analysis revealed that in recent months, Xiaohong had been in frequent contact with two phone numbers ending in 778 and 546. After checking ownership records, the police discovered that the number ending in 778 belonged to Wang Chenjian, a 48-year-old man living in Lanzhou. In contrast, the number ending in 546 was an unregistered number with no identifiable owner. The police preliminarily identified Chenjian as Ajian. The police extracted a portrait of Wang Chenjian from the resident database and showed it to the neighbors near Xiaohong's former rental home. They confirmed that Chenjian was indeed the middle-aged man who frequently visited Xiaohong and was affectionately called Ajian. The police quickly contacted Chenjian to gather information. When approached, Chenjian greeted the officers normally, but the tension in his eyes was unmistakable. When asked about Xiaohong, he firmly denied knowing her, claiming, "I've never heard of this woman." His response was accompanied by unusual behavior, seemingly an attempt to avoid the topic. The police then presented evidence of phone calls between him and Xiaohong. Upon seeing the records in front of him, Wang Chenjian began to show signs of nervousness. He attempted to justify the calls, saying, "Those were just normal conversations between friends." Investigators decided to increase the pressure on Chenjian by presenting information gathered from neighbors near Xiaohong's former residence. They stated clearly that several people had seen him and Xiaohong together at her rental home. Chenjian's demeanor suddenly changed. He tensed up and became visibly stiff. He then confessed that he had lied during the earlier questioning. Chenjian admitted that he did know Xiaohong and that they had been in a romantic relationship. Chenjian, a wealthy businessman, often sought entertainment outside his marriage. He confessed that his married life was unhappy, describing his wife, Zhou Hongqi, as an older, domineering, and difficult woman. Moreover, Hunke's family wielded considerable power and influence. It was with their support that Wang Chenjian had been able to build his successful career, making it impossible for him to easily break away from them. To balance his personal desires with his obligations to his family, Chenjian decided to secretly meet Xiaohong. Their relationship lasted for some time, and he had invested in her not only emotionally, but also materially. However, he constantly feared his wife discovering the affair, knowing it would cost him everything. While Chenjian's confession appeared convincing, the police did not rule him out as a suspect. They decided to launch a detailed investigation into Wang Chenjian's whereabouts on November 10th, the day Xiaohong was most likely murdered. The investigation quickly revealed that Chenjian had attended a dinner that evening and consumed alcohol, but his intoxication level was not severe, as he was able to drive away from the restaurant without any issues. However, his wife, Hong Qi, provided a surprising revelation. Hong Qi stated that her husband did not return home that night. Chenjian had called her and claimed he was staying at the house of a friend named Juhu. When the police contacted Juhu to verify this information, Juhu confirmed that Chenjian had not been at his house that night. The series of lies seemed to suggest that Chenjian might indeed be the culprit. After repeatedly attempting to justify himself under police pressure, Chenjian finally admitted that on the night of November 10th, he had not gone to Juhu's house as he told his wife. Instead, he stayed at the Hongqiao Hotel. The police immediately went to the hotel to verify this information. Surveillance footage revealed that at approximately 9 p.m. on November 10th, Chenjian entered the hotel, but notably, he was not alone. Chenjian was accompanied by a young woman. After reviewing the footage, authorities quickly determined that the woman was not Xiaohong. When questioned by police, Wang Chenjian stated that the woman was named Mei, a sex worker who had approached him on the street that night. Although Chenjian's alibi for the night of November 10th cleared him as a suspect in Xiaohong's murder, his dubious actions came at a significant personal cost. During questioning, police uncovered another important lead. On October 27th, while the two were at a hotel together, Chenjian had secretly checked Xiaohong's phone while she was in the shower. During this snooping, Chenjian noticed that a phone number ending in 546 had called Xiaohong several times that day. Driven by curiosity, Chenjian saved the unfamiliar number in his own phone. Later, when Xiaohong wasn't around, Chenjian decided to call the number ending in 546. On the other end of the line, a man answered and introduced himself politely as Zhang Datong, an obstetrician-gynecologist from a maternity hospital in Lanzhou. Surprised by this information, Chenjian didn't press further and simply stated that he had dialed the wrong number. Later, he cautiously asked Xiaohong about it, and she confirmed that she was dealing with some personal issues and needed to consult a doctor. Xiaohong's explanation temporarily alleviated Chenjian's suspicions. However, the police viewed the situation differently. Telecommunication records showed an unusually high frequency of communication between Xiaohong and the number ending in 546. The two had been in contact regularly since early September and continued to communicate up until the day Xiaohong was believed to have been murdered. Chenjian further revealed that his relationship with Xiaohong had gone through a period of strain during that time. He had tried to reconcile, but Xiaohong seemed distant. Sometimes she would answer his calls with a cold, indifferent tone, while at other times she deliberately ignored his calls or turned off her phone. After this tense period, the two decided to reconcile on October 25th. However, during a meeting on November 9th, Chenjian noticed that Xiaohong was still distant and even refused to let him touch her. Her unusual behavior created tension in their relationship. Her demeanor puzzled Chenjian, and her sudden murder left him feeling even more bewildered. With all the leads they had gathered, the police decided to investigate the doctor named Datong. When they arrived at Lanzhou Maternity Hospital, they quickly confirmed that there was indeed a doctor named Datong, aged 44, with many years of experience in his field. According to several hospital staff, Datong's relationship with his wife was strained. Notably, his wife had been visiting the hospital every few days to question staff about Datong's schedule and behavior. This led many to speculate that Datong might be having an affair and that his wife was suspicious and quietly investigating to gather evidence. The police expanded their investigation after uncovering a critical detail. Dr. Zhang Datong typically used a phone number ending in 335, but no one at the hospital had ever heard him mention owning the number ending in 546. Chen Xiaozhou, Dr. Datong's assistant, provided the police with key information. Xiaozhou admitted that, although unintentionally, he had overheard Datong speaking intimately on the phone with a woman. Based on his judgment, the woman was not Datong's wife. The situation became even more suspicious when it was revealed that on October 30th, Dr. Datong performed a surgical procedure on a patient named Wang Xiaohong. Xiaozhou recalled that during the preparation and after the surgery, Datong displayed excessive concern and paid special attention to Xiaohong, behavior markedly different from his interactions with other patients. From hospital records, the police confirmed that the victim, Xiaohong, had indeed undergone a genital tightening procedure performed by Dr. Datong on October 30th. His unusual level of concern for Xiaohong, coupled with the intimate phone calls and the mysterious phone number, raised questions about their relationship. The police arranged a direct interview with Dr. Datong. During questioning, Datong firmly insisted that he only knew Xiaohong as her doctor and maintained that their relationship was strictly professional. Datong explained, "I provided medical consultations to Xiaohong regarding her health." However, the police remained skeptical. The previously gathered evidence, along with Datong's anxious demeanor during questioning, heightened their suspicions. They could not ignore the fact that Datong had contact with Xiaohong on November 10th, the day she was believed to have died. To clarify the situation further, the police decided to interview Zhang Datong's wife, Ms. Liu. During their conversation, Ms. Liu confirmed that her husband did not return home on the night of November 10th. According to hospital records, Datong was not on call that night. Surveillance footage from the hospital entrance showed that at approximately 7:30 p.m., Datong drove away from the hospital. Notably, his direction of travel was not toward his home. Tracking his car, the police discovered that at around 9:15 p.m. that evening, Datong's vehicle was spotted on surveillance cameras near the rental home where Xiaohong had been living. Footage showed Xiaohong getting into the car with Datong at approximately 9:30 p.m., after which the vehicle drove away. Despite efforts to trace the car's movements, the police lost track of it later that night. This lead heightened police suspicion, as Datong appeared to be the last person to have seen Wang Xiaohong alive. All evidence at this point pointed toward Dr. Datong, but he adamantly denied any allegations. The police decided to compare the DNA from the dried bloodstain found on the wooden plank at the site where Xiaohong's body was dumped. After forensic testing, the results confirmed that the DNA from the bloodstain belonged to Dr. Zhang Datong. When summoned to the police station for questioning, Zhang Datong initially denied the charges. However, when the police presented irrefutable evidence from the DNA samples, Datong's composure began to crumble. His expression turned anxious, and his previous explanations became increasingly incoherent. Faced with undeniable evidence, Datong finally confessed to being the killer. Datong recounted that he first met Xiaohong in early September at a bar. Seeing a beautiful woman sitting alone, he couldn't resist her allure and approached her to start a conversation. Dissatisfied with his marriage, Datong saw Xiaohong as an opportunity to fulfill his emotional and physical desires. After their first encounter, the two quickly ended up at a hotel. Their relationship became intimate, with Datong going out of his way to cater to Xiaohong's needs and desires. On October 30th, Datong performed a genital tightening surgery on Xiaohong, as they had previously discussed. This was not just a routine procedure, but also a demonstration of the special attention Datong gave her. However, on November 9th, Xiaohong unexpectedly suggested ending their relationship. This left Datong feeling confused and angry. He attempted to contact Xiaohong, but she refused to answer his calls. On November 10th, after being repeatedly ignored, Xiaohong finally answered and agreed to meet Datong for a decisive conversation. That evening, after leaving the hospital and meeting with another patient, Zhang Datong picked up Xiaohong. Inside the car, Datong demanded a valid explanation for the breakup. At first, Xiaohong claimed that her family disapproved of their relationship, which Datong dismissed as ridiculous. She then argued that Datong was too busy and didn't spend enough time with her. However, Datong rejected this reasoning as well. Finally, Xiaohong revealed the truth. She had fallen in love with someone else, a wealthier man who was willing to do anything for her. These words were like a harsh blow to Datong's pride. Even so, Datong pleaded with her to reconsider, but Wang Xiaohong coldly replied that she had never loved him. She admitted that she had only used him to get the genital tightening surgery done for free. After saying this, Xiaohong opened the car door and stepped out, leaving Datong in a storm of anger and humiliation. Before walking away, she emphasized that Datong had merely been a placeholder during the time when she and her lover were estranged. She revealed that they had reconciled some time ago. Xiaohong confessed that she would have broken up with Datong sooner, but had delayed until after the surgery. This was more than Zhang Datong could bear. Overcome with fury, Datong slowly drove after Xiaohong until his emotions boiled over. He abruptly stopped the car, rushed out, and forcefully dragged her back inside. When Xiaohong struggled to escape, Datong used his strength to strangle her. In that moment of rage and panic, Datong realized he had gone too far. Horrified by what he had done, he panicked, knowing he had committed murder. Trying to regain his composure, Datong searched for a place to dispose of the body. Since the area was still far from the outskirts, Datong decided to take Xiaohong's body to a rundown residential neighborhood where he had previously visited patients. While burying the body under a pile of trash, Datong accidentally cut his hand on a piece of broken glass, causing him to bleed. Unbeknownst to him, the blood droplets he left behind would become a crucial clue for the police. Regarding the phone number ending in 546, Datong admitted that it was a private number he used exclusively to communicate with Xiaohong. Because of his professional habits, he had a tendency to introduce himself by stating his name, occupation, and workplace whenever he answered the phone, explaining the call Chen Jian mentioned to the police. After Datong's confession, further investigation confirmed that Xiaohong and Datong began their relationship during a period when she and Chen Jian were temporarily separated. Even after Xiaohong reconciled with Chen Jian, she continued seeing both men. The case was finally resolved. Defendant Zhang Datong was sentenced to life imprisonment by the Lanzhou High Court for the crime of premeditated murder and concealing the body. This case has sparked deep reflections on the complexities of human emotions and the devastating consequences that can arise when relationships are not built on honesty and mutual understanding. It also highlights the insecurity and suffering experienced by both the victim and the perpetrator, illustrating how split-second decisions can lead to irreversible outcomes. That concludes today's story. Thank you for watching. See you next time.